Why I got kicked out of Canada for the rest of my life. I've been meaning to make this video for almost 2 years, a video about my last trip to Canada and about my last attempt to get into Canada when the border guards made me wait for hours, yelled at me, took away my passport, made me sign deportation papers even though I was only asking for permission to enter the country. How can you deport someone when they're not actually in the country? And they told me that if I tried to come to Canada again, I would be arrested. It was December, a snowy day, the next day when I took a walk along the icy lake, trying to make the best of a bad situation. The hotel where I stayed was full of people who were denied entry into Canada. I've actually seen this from the Canadian side, I guess. Not gonna see that anytime soon. But let's backtrack. I want to talk about my last trip to Canada in the summer of 2021 when I drove from Quebec City to Saguenay and then to Saint Jean Lake, returning to Montreal via a picturesque road through La Tuque and Trois-Rivières. It was the furthest north I had ever been in North America, and I was surprised to see how popular plastic palm trees were. I really can't figure this out, why there are a whole bunch of fake palm trees in northern Quebec. I have gone to university in Montreal, living in the city for 5 years, and I had been to Quebec City numerous times to visit friends. But like most Quebecers, I think I might be right to make this assumption. I had never traveled further north beyond Quebec City. Saguenay is special because of the fjord, the largest in North America, I think. I heard that it is so deep that sharks live inside of it. Like the rocks. Oh, it's cool. There's a very long boardwalk along it and a bridge that pedestrians can cross on foot. Okay, here's the cheese production plant in Quebec. It looks like they're making this kind of traditional cheese that the poutine is made from. Quebec cheese. What is the name of this cheese?
Cheese from Quebec.
I know, but is there like a name for it?
I don't know.
There's also a bizarre museum in Saguenay of a little house that survived a huge flood and still has a powerful current of water flowing through it. This region of Quebec has numerous pristine lakes, some of which are completely surrounded by forest, and when you swim there, you have the whole lake and the beach all to yourself. Here's the Quebec countryside, and it kind of looks like France. There's sheep here. You never really see that in America, just sheep going somewhere. When I was driving to Saguenay with my friend from Quebec City, we got there really late at night. It was like a 2-hour drive. We were trying to open our Airbnb apartment and we couldn't figure out how to get the door open. And the key was just like stuck in the door and we couldn't get in. It was like midnight. And then my friend was like, oh, I really have to go to the bathroom. Okay, next thing I knew is he went into the backyard and decided to like take a dump in this lady's tomato patch. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna get a really bad review on this Airbnb and nobody's ever gonna like rent an Airbnb to me again. And I was like, we have to do something about this. So I told him we got a plastic bag, go and collect your shit, put it in the bag. And then I remember we were walking all around this neighborhood looking for a dumpster so we could dump this bag into a dumpster, which we eventually found at a gas station. From Saguenay, I drove to Lac Saint-Jean, which is a huge lake, and the native people call it the shallow lake because you can walk into it for a long time and the water never goes above your waist. And the government built a bicycle trail all the way around it, and you can admire the views of the lake as you cycle along, periodically stopping to take a handful of blueberries. So now I rented a bicycle and I am riding around Saint Jean Lake, riding around the lake. It's very beautiful. We're like in the forest here, and there are a lot of blueberries, and this one, I don't know what this is, but I'll show you the blueberries. Basically, blueberry. Kind of feel a bit like uncomfortable because I'm alone in this forest. So, the lady told me after 6 kilometers I should probably turn back. Maybe I will. There's a lot of blueberries for sure. The next day I drove to a native museum located on an Indian reservation. I am at Lac Saint-Jean, which you can see on the horizon behind me. And it's my first time visiting a native village. I think the entire village is a reservation. And now I'm going to a history museum having to do with First Peoples history. And you can see there's some sort of teepee sculptures behind me, and there's a playground, which is different from a normal playground because it's made in the shape of a boat. And some native writing here. It says Nech Luyun, something written in the language, whatever that means. So now we're gonna go and see the museum. And I found the whole experience fascinating. You could click on a button and hear native languages being spoken and hear the call of different types of birds. And learn how the native people prepare different dishes from the animals they hunt, such as beaver and muskrat. If you want to know how to cook beaver, beaver is hung over fire and rotated for several hours. There's also a tour outside.
On les appelait les Blancs et les Indiens. Faudrait changer ça. Si on veut changer le racisme un peu, il faut changer des affaires. Déjà, changer les noms, ça aiderait un peu, je pense. Donc, on dit des Autochtones, et tous ceux qui ne sont pas des Autochtones, on dit des Allochtones. Okay? D'accord? Donc, il est arrivé des Allochtones ici, puis il y a eu un génocide culturel ici. Le français, il a inondé cette langue-là. Mais il flotte encore un 10% de la population, qui parle encore couramment cette langue-là. À la maison et quand ils vont en forêt. Donc, vous pouvez très bien lire entre les lignes que c'est plus les gens qui vont encore en forêt qui parlent vraiment cette langue-là encore. Ceux qui restent en ville tout le temps ne parlent pas bien cette langue-là. Là, c'est une langue vraiment de forêt. Hein, vraiment, une langue faite pour ça. Donc, nous autres, on travaille super fort. Ici, toute la communauté, on s'est fait même un préscolaire, on s'est fait un primaire, on s'est fait un secondaire. Donc, les enfants peuvent aller à l'école, tu sais. Ils peuvent apprendre la même chose que les autres enfants, le même programme éducatif, tu sais. Mais il y a un cours de plus, et le cours de Nilweun. Il s'appelle le Nilweun. C'est la langue. Des sorties, ils font même une sortie par année. Ils vont en forêt. Une fois par année, là, à partir du primaire. Ils font une sortie, ils vont en forêt, ils apprennent toutes sortes de choses. Un moment donné, ils apprennent même à aller tuer l'orignal, dépasser, transporter la viande, à arranger la peau, tout ça. T'sais? On a un petit chemin de portage ici. Venez avec moi. Et ça, plus tu en bois, puis moins que tu as mal. Mais plus tu t'endors. OK? Il faut faire attention à ce niveau-là. Les femmes, pendant l'accouchement, il y avait le coude haut. Je peux vous dire ça. ça rentrait le thé du Labrador là, pendant que ça en allait accoucher dans leur affaire. Les Jésuites, ils n'ont rien compris de tout ça. D'autres, savez-vous ce qu'ils ont compris? Moi, je l'ai lu un moment donné dans les relations des Jésuites. Là. C'est pas une des phrases, des fois, là, que ça flash. On dirait que dans le livre, il y a des néons alentour de la phrase, là, ça flash. Là. Tu te dis, ben voyons donc. Ça se peut-tu qu'il ait pensé ça, qu'il ait écrit ça dans sa... Et là, à un moment donné, tu lis plein de phrases, puis tu arrives à une phrase, tu écris les femmes autochtones accouchent sans douleur.
Moi aussi.
Tu vois, hein? Ça flash, hein? Tu te dis, ça se peut-tu, ça, c'est drôle. Ben non, c'est évidemment, c'est que peut-être ce jésuite-là, à ce moment-là, il était à côté d'une femme qui en avait bu en masse, puis ça l'a donné qu'elle faisait pas de bruit en accouchant. Puis là, lui, automatiquement, il a sorti son livre. Il y en a peut-être un autre qui a lu ses textes puis qui a réécrit la même affaire, ou c'est arrivé à un autre aussi.
I am here outside of the Native American Museum. First time going to a Native American museum in my life. It was very, very interesting. I spent so much time there that now I'm starving, couldn't leave. It's one of, I think, maybe 4 Native museums in Quebec. And there's all kinds of interesting information. Like, I was surprised by similarities between Russian and Native American birch tree juice uses. Birch trees grow in this part of Quebec, and this really struck me because these are also the types of trees that grow in St. Petersburg, Russia, where I was born, and I remember them from childhood. Just as fascinating too was to learn that the native people of Canada also drink birch tree sap, as people in Russia do, and have discovered the edible qualities of the same plants. This made me wonder about the historical connections between the Native Americans and the people that inhabit Russia's Far East. So at the center of this village are these teepee sculptures, and there's 4 for each time of the year, and inside there is information about which animal the native people, the Innu people, hunted during that time of the year. The groundhog comes out of its hole to take advantage of the midday heat in spring. For the Montagnier, this animal announces spring. Maybe it's the reason why the Montagnier named the month of March on Groundhog Month. Actually, look, there's it's in 3 languages. In the Montagnier language, and then in French and English. And it's interesting because in the Montagnier language, which is written also in Latin letters, it seems like the words are longer, but there are a lot fewer words than in French. This village is definitely worth the visit, and the walk along the lake is really beautiful. This is actually St. John Lake. It looks like the ocean because you can't see the other side. From there I drove to the town of Tuque, where I was impressed by the affordable cost of housing, like $100,000 beautiful home. I stayed in the home of someone who worked in a factory. His girlfriend was a grocery store employee, and they were able to buy their own home for $100,000. It was actually also interesting because they built some of their own furniture from wood, and I slept in the most unique bed with birch trees incorporated into the design of the bed. Today is kind of a gloomy day, and I am in Tuque, which I just got up from my Airbnb. I have no idea what's around here. Looks like there's a teepee in a public park, and the city is extremely hilly, like almost like feels like 75-degree hills everywhere. I don't know what it would be like to drive here in the winter. I'm looking for a coffee shop so I could do some work maybe. I might need to go to a mechanic because a maintenance light just came on. It's starting to kind of drizzle right now. I want to see what is inside the teepee. Why is there a teepee in a public park? So now I'm gonna walk into the teepee. Actually just a picnic table in there. It's starting to rain, so it's actually kind of a welcome thing. Oof. And now I'm in the teepee. And there's kind of like a hole at the top, which I had no idea. The teepees have holes. I guess you would have a fire in the center or something. It's a pretty small space. Kind of have to bend over to walk in. And the material is just feels like some kind of cloth, like a thick cloth kind of thing. I would stay here if I had friends to hang out with. Nice shelter from the rain. The bed. And a very, very cute pond in front of it. Then I drove south on a road which follows the most picturesque river. The drive was one of the most beautiful I had ever taken, but isolating, so far from civilization that I could not find a single radio station while flipping through the dials. It is just wow, it's so beautiful driving along. My other friend invited me to go camping with her, but she said that the road was in bad condition and I might have trouble driving on it. But I was like, okay, well, I'll try. So I started driving on this road. She was like camping somewhere on the side of a lake. It felt like I basically went rock climbing with my little car, because there were like huge rocks and like branches that scratched along the car, and I had to come out every couple steps to see which way I should drive in order to not like get rocks scraped up on my car and stuff, or not to have my car tip over. And then it took me like forever. Surprisingly, I made it. And then when I got to this lake, I just saw her car and her tent, but she wasn't there. And I got completely freaked out, and I was like, I don't want to get stuck here all alone in the middle of the night. So I got back in my car and drove all the way back and ended up driving all the way to Montreal. And ended up renting an Airbnb, like first Airbnb I could get when I got to Montreal at like midnight and I had no place to stay. She told me she went like boating with her boyfriend, and that's why she wasn't there when I arrived. Pictures of the car, basically, like what the car looked like after driving on that road. It was scratched by branches on every side. I'm sure that if I had recorded it like right after I came back, it would have been a lot more interesting. So I finally came out of my Airbnb. I found this boat. The boat, it's a restaurant on a boat. They don't have any food. Oh, maybe they have some food. Look, the dog is eating something. What? Now you've been waiting for my story about why I was banned from Canada for the rest of my life. I didn't get caught drunk driving or breaking any laws or anything like that. I used to be a permanent resident of Canada, and I lost the status because I did not spend enough time in the country. According to Canadian rules, you have to spend 3 out of every 5 years in Canada, or 2 out of every 5 years, I don't remember. But I found out that my appeal to keep my Canadian permanent residence was denied smack in the middle of the pandemic. At that time, the border between the US and Canada was closed, and I knew that once I left Canada, I would not be able to return, not even as a visitor, for an undetermined period of time. I overstayed in Canada for about 10 days because it turned out I had to leave 30 days after losing my permanent resident status. At that time, I was having serious medical problems too. Given the pandemic and the fact that some people had been waiting for months for diagnostic tests, I worried about returning to the US. I returned only after setting up an appointment with my doctor. At the time, I worried so much about my health problems that my immigration status took a back seat. After being denied entry to Canada in December of 2021, I filed an application called a request to return to Canada. The application had a $400 fee. I hadn't received any reply from the Canadian Embassy. Not being able to return to Canada for the rest of my life is tragic for me because I had lived in Montreal for a significant portion of my life, and some of my Canadian friends had never traveled outside of the country, and if I don't go to see them, I will probably never have a chance to meet them again, ever.